And here I was thinking this movie was going to be about marketing. Thought it was Superbad.
Welcome back to HIVEMIND Unlimited.
And welcome to the 6th episode of How Did It Age? Where we rewatch old movies with modern context and decide how they've aged. Today's movie is 2007's Superbad, a comedy classic, a buddy comedy starring Jonah Hill and Michael Cera.
Yes, this movie was written by Seth Rogen and his good buddy Evan Goldberg.
Yes, and the main characters' names are Seth and Evan, so it is autobiographical.
I had no idea.
What do you mean?
I had no idea that was the case.
You had no idea that their names were Seth and Evan?
What a little twist.
They say them in the movie.
What a little secret twist. Almost an Easter egg.
It's not an Easter egg. It's quite evident.
You know what else is an Easter egg? 13th and Granville, where McLovin wants Bill Hader and Seth Rogen, who play Officer Michaels and Officer Bill Hader.
Officer Slater.
Thank you. Where he wants them to take him. That's the location of their favorite sushi spot in high school.
Oh, that's cute.
There are a couple, like anytime they mention an address, it's like a tip of the cap to Seth and Evan's favorite locations in Vancouver, where they went to high school, where this story kind of was conceived.
Right, but it takes place in Los Angeles, California.
It does, because that's where movies are made. This is like the story of these two going to high school in the 90s in Vancouver. And this movie, you know, is half written when they're teenagers and then starts kind of production and gains traction in like 2000 and then isn't finished until 2007.
I think about it as like a band's first album. It's kind of like the album that they work on their entire lives. And then once they're done with that, then they have to make a bunch of other albums after that. This is kind of like Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg at like max potential in a lot of ways. Max
like reward too. This movie worked on like a $17.5 to $20 million budget and made $170 million. Was #1 in theaters for 2 straight weeks. Has like an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.6 on IMDb, and a 76% on Metacritic. And the GOAT, Roger Ebert, even gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars and said he was McLovin' it, which is just awesome for that old critic. Yeah, it really was the quintessential kind of millennial coming-of-age comedy, and they based this off of American Graffiti, Dazed and Confused, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which are like other teenage coming-of-age movies, and 2 of those all happen in one day, just like this one does too.
To me, it feels very inspired by Project X.
Project X could not inspire it because it came out after.
Crap.
Yeah.
And I fudged my research again.
Yeah. It also came out before cops were really bad people and before the Me Too movement, and those are things that are very apparent in this story.
Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
We'll get there. Last note I want to make before we get into the category is this is the film debut of great actors and actresses like Emma Stone and Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Who's that?
He's Fogel.
Oh, yeah, McLovin.
Yeah, and Jonah Hill did not want him in the movie.
They didn't get along. Apparently, McLovin and Jonah Hill, they weren't good friends after this one.
Christopher, apparently, as a first-time actor, just kept stepping on Jonah Hill's lines. He'd finish a line, and he'd be like, oh, fuck you, man. And a lot of that ends up making the final cut, and honestly makes Fogel's character that perfect, annoying, kind of third-wheel best friend, because he's just like, he's agitated.
And Jonah Hill seems legitimately pissed off in this movie. Yeah. It comes off very authentically he is pissed off by McLovin.
Yep. It's also directed by Greg Mottola, who is the protege of Steven Soderbergh and Nancy Tenenbaum. Had you seen this movie before?
It's between this, Hot Rod, and Wet Hot American Summer for the movie I've seen the most in my life.
Yeah, it's up there for me too. I saw it right as it came out, and I've seen it countless times after.
Yeah, I watch it in my head sometimes. Oh, I can't say that nowadays.
Don't spoil it, dude.
Oh,
I'm gonna finish it later.
Oh, he's sweet.
Oh.
That was about Evan. Oh, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. A very quotable movie.
It's a movie full of one-liners, zingers, goofs, and gaffs.
Yep. One of my favorites, a very underspoken one, is when Michael Cera is playing soccer and Seth runs onto the field.
Yes.
And the coach tells him to like pay attention to the game, whatever, get your head in the game. And he's like, kick it to me. Kick it to me. Just very underspoken, but it's so funny.
Yeah.
And then also when Dave Franco makes his cameo.
Yep.
And it's a very like a storied cameo because apparently
sure.
that kind of convinced a lot of people that he was going to be a great actor just from that one line that he has. But he's like, why don't you go piss your pants again to whatever his character's name is. That's what Seth says. And then Dave Franco turns around and says, that was like 8 years ago, asshole. And then Jonah Hill yells, people don't forget.
He goes, Evan, we're down 2 points. Come on. And Michael Cera goes, shut up. It's just soccer.
Yeah, it's soccer.
And then we get like the first great Jonah Hill monologue, which we get like 10 of. That are full of quotables. Everything's underpinned with like this insane sexual vulgarity that like we'll touch on a little bit later about how that all ages. But the monologue he gives on that soccer field is just ridiculous. He invents DTF there.
Yeah.
She's down to fuck.
Yep. DTF. That was never used before this movie.
It was coined by old Jonah. Yeah, this is just full of so many good ones. Some of the early ones I wrote is when Jonah Hill's arguing to the home ec teacher.
So funny.
And he keeps swearing. Who the fuck needs to learn how to do... Sorry for cursing. Sorry, but everyone takes this because it's a bullshit class. I'm sorry again.
He's like, we're here making shitty fucking food. Again, no offense. But
he keeps stepping over, coming back. Stepping over, coming back. And then her character, I love her line when Fogel comes in and is telling him about the fake ID. She's like, if you're not in this class, leave. And then she goes, Fogel... Hi!
Yeah.
Like yells at him. That line is delivered in such a great way.
I also obviously love the dream sequences as Jonah Hill is trying to go in and steal the liquor instead of using McLovin's ID to get it.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of them, but the one with the old lady where he helps her pick up her bag and then she offers to get him alcohol. And then they're at the front. He's holding his alcohol. She's walking away. And he says, enjoy your remaining years. And she says, I will. Enjoy fucking Jules. And he goes, I will. That whole sequence is so funny.
I also love the line in that when the security guard goes, don't do it, kid. And he turns around and he goes, I never had a choice. And he whips the bottle at him. Gets caught.
Slits his throat.
Well, throws it back, kills the old lady. He says, you killed her. It's shattered, and he picks it up and slits his throat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That, like, surrealist scene compared to, like, another movie we've done and, like, Hot Rod, where they do like the choppier YouTube kind of edit of like Cool Beans.
Yeah.
I love the like this version, I guess, compared to like the more like odd comedy of the Hot Rod version.
Yeah, you only get it once. It's just a daydream, and it's 3 in a row. It's like a rule of threes. It's great. It's great comedy that you see that happen. You get to kind of know where Jonah Hill's mind goes when he goes in there, you know?
Yeah, I was going to do it. You would have never done that. He says it to Fogel. He didn't do it, but he was going to do it.
Yeah. I also, right after that, when they do go to the liquor store and McLovin's kind of freaking out, worried about going in there, it's like, what other choice do we have? Trying to convince him to do it. And then he's like, what if they make me put the liquor back on the shelves? I can't do that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, then we're back at square one. And then he's like, what are you going to do if I don't do it? Like McLovin says that to Jonah Hill. And Jonah Hill's like, well, then I'll cut your face off, sew it onto mine, and go in there and buy the liquor myself.
Yes.
And then McLovin responds with, you don't have the technology or the steady hands to pull off a procedure like that.
Yeah.
That line is so funny because it's like out of character for how well-spoken it is.
Yeah.
It's smart. It's so funny.
Yeah, but it gives you the glimpse of a young man who got accepted into Dartmouth. Like, you believe he has the capability of that kind of, like, intellectual, you know, commentary on something, but he's just such, like, a nervous little freak that it, like, only comes out in, like, a couple little moments.
Yeah, you can tell he's nerdy by his appearance and stuff, too, and how unnatural he sounds in how he speaks all of the rest of the movie, where he's like, chicka, chicka, yeah, fake ID, fake ID. Like, he's just, like, a nerd. He's a perfect character. Like, for him to be that, there's a reason he's the most beloved character in this movie.
For sure. And he's the one who like really wins too in the end. And we'll also get into like the arc of the story and everything later, but he really is kind of the champion at the end, which is just awesome. Some other honorable mentions of lines that I feel like we just cannot gloss over are "I'm getting that for show" from Jonah Hill. That's just it. That became like part of the lexicon. People would be like, "For show." Like you'd say it like that without even understanding you were referencing it.
Yep.
No one's gotten a hand job in cargo shorts since Nam.
Yep.
That's another iconic line from
Classic,
it.
yeah.
I want to shout out in that scene where they're in Michael Cera's bedroom and Jonah Hill's like going through his clothes for whatever, and he's just putting on these really tight, kind of like the shirt I'm wearing today, honestly. It's a little small. He's like, "Do you have anything that's not tiny or whatever?" Michael Cera's playing the video game, and he's like, "I'm not going to be convinced by emotional terrorism. And then he's playing a game about terrorists, and he's like, "These terrorists are replicating like rabbits." And then he loses, and he goes, "Oh, that's fun. Why would they even make a game that you can't win at?"
Yeah.
It's just like his like little dialogue to himself and the video game he's playing in that moment is so funny. Michael Cera's delivery pretty much on every line is just like,
it's perfect.
it's really incredible. And it has like, in such a sexually vulgar film, it has like such a sweetness and like a second guessing to almost everything extreme that Jonah Hill says that I feel like keeps it kind of balanced, and it allows it to exist outside of the place that like American Pie and Animal House like eventually fell into.
Yeah, I'll touch on that later. That's a big part of how the movie aged for me.
Yeah. Another kind of dream sequence, more of the flashback of when Jonah Hill is telling Michael Cera about his penis drawing problem as a small kid. He's explaining the story of the day Becca finds out. And he goes, "This one day, I was finishing up this big, veiny, triumphant bastard." And then and the details just like keep going. He's got like the Ninja Turtle lunchbox, and he's like, it's like this sadistic, twisted, like sick little kid who just can't stop drawing penises.
He's also, I didn't realize how many references were in those drawings. Like he has like one at Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
Like he has like
It's
one
literally
flying
stopping.
a rocket. He has like an Apollo 13 like rocket dick. Like there's tons of like, it's like Jurassic Park dick.
Yeah.
Like
Why is this kid so culturally and like globally aware of everything going on that he's like able to insert penises into all these situations? It's not only is he like absurdly good at drawing them, but he knows like world history to put them in. It's so weird. They're like building the pyramids, and you're like, what? Why?
Yeah. Bill Hader and Seth Rogen as the cops in general those are my favorite parts of the entire movie.
For sure.
I think like I would have watched 2 hours of just them delivering lines back and forth, just scenes of them. They're so funny together. But in that first scene that they show up where they're talking to the cashier at the place that just got robbed where McLovin is trying to buy liquor, and they're like getting the description of the perp,
The criminal profile.
yeah, and they're like, you know, how tall was he? Like, I'll start here. I'll start up top. And they're like, both going whatever. But then at one point they're like, so we have an African Jew wearing a hoodie. He's like, no, I said he looks like you. Do you look like an African Jew? And Seth Rogen stops and goes, no, I look like a cop.
He says, "I look like a cop, ma'am." He goes, did he look more like us or?
Yeah, they're like unwilling to say black.
Yeah,
to like
and she's like, "No, he was a man," and they're like, "No, like instead of saying black, they just kind of like fumble out African, and they're like, African, and she's like, "No, it looked like you," and she goes, "Oh, Jewish," before he says the cop part, and so they like skip the white part, and they're like, "Oh, he's Jewish." Must have been a Jewish guy.
And then they say African Jew,
Wearing a hoodie.
Yeah, it's so funny. A few other quick lines before I get to my actual favorite is just the delivery Jonah Hill gives at the end to Emma Stone when he says, "You're drunk, Jules. You're drunk." And then right after that goes, you drink, Jules. You drink. Like he just won't accept that she's not drunk, and it's just so funny. And he's very like convincingly drunk, and she's very convincingly sober.
Right.
So it's just like a very funny dynamic in that conversation. Also, Joe Latrulio, who plays the guy who hits Seth with his car and then takes him to that party. and he's kind of like a weird, like loser old guy.
Yeah.
When he gets out of the car at the party, he says, "Welcome to the Thunderdome," and I lost it when he said that. But my favorite line in the entire movie is when Bill Hader starts doing a Yoda impression with Seth Rogen in the cop car, and then he turns to McLovin and says, "Are you familiar with Yoda from Attack of the Clones?" It's just so funny to me that he doesn't say Star Wars. I was crying laughing that he's like, from Attack of the Clones.
I think Bill Hader has my favorite line too, when Jonah Hill gets hit by a car again, and this time it's by Seth Rogen and Bill Hader, and they're trying to figure out how to get out of the situation, and he has them both on the ground, and he's like, "I am the law." He's like, hold his hand, and he's like your little sister, like, "Ooh, you hold it." He's like making fun of them, and Jonah Hill asks something like, "Why can't we get up?" And Bill Hader says, "Because you don't want an asshole where your face is, Waylon Jennings." Like, what? Like, why does he? I guess he is.
It's because his shirt. It's his shirt. Yeah.
He's wearing the Western Flair shirt, which is like Michael Cera's dad. Because you don't want an asshole where your face is, Waylon Jennings, is such a good line.
Yeah.
Absolutely kills it. I mean, any of those lines between Seth Rogen and Bill Hader couldn't be in my favorite. There's so many. I love when Bill Hader's talking about how he met his wife.
Yeah.
They're like advising McLovin that you shouldn't meet girls at a bar. And he's like, "Yeah, I met the missus playing paintball. Shot her in the neck." He's like, "I met my first wife, guess where? At a bar." And Seth Rogen's like, "This bar?"
Yeah, it was this bar.
He's like, "Yep, she was a whore."
He goes, "My first wife, who is a whore, by the way." That's how he says it. It's so.
He says, "Night of our wedding, we had group sex. I wasn't involved, but I heard it." And then he says, like, he didn't find out she was a whore till later. Like, that didn't tip him off.
Well, like an actual, like, prostitute.
Yeah, they pick her up on the street. Yeah.
It is, whew. It's really crazy. The only other line I have to shout out before we get to the next category is when Jonah Hill and Michael Cera at the end are laying in sleeping bags next to each other and saying, "I love you," back and forth. And Jonah Hill just goes, boop.
He boops him. Boop. He gives him a
on
little
his
boop.
nose. Boop, boop.
Oh, screaming from the rooftop.
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you.
They apparently, Seth and Evan wanted to end the movie after the party. And it was like Apatow who pushed them to like, no, like viewers need, you know, the difference between plot and story, essentially. Like you need the story of it. Like they need to have that moment together lying down, and then they need to bump into the girls at the mall because that like is the bow on it all.
Yeah.
Which is awesome that, you know, that is really the Apatow kind of touch on this movie, because if it just ends at the party, it is kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little touch, little behind the scenes note. I could just keep doing these lines all day. I love the Seth Rogen line where he's explaining how when he first became a cop, he thought everything was like CSI and how everything would be covered in semen.
Yeah.
And how easy that would be as a cop. And he says, some days I wake up and I just wish it was a world that was covered in semen.
He said, I often dream of a world where everything is covered in semen. And then Bill Hader goes, I think we all do.
He's like, for example, if that guy who punched you in the face would have came in and jerked off, we could catch him.
Yeah, if he came in, cummed on you, and then we have a real shot at catching this guy. I'm going to start with scenes that aged the worst.
Sure.
Obviously, there's a lot of homophobic slurs used in this movie. Honestly, even Seth's name for McLovin's character is just the F slur mixed with his last name.
Right. I had an F slur counter going. I got about 4.
Really?
Yeah, that was all I got.
Oh, there's more than that.
Only one R word too, which I thought was kind of impressive.
Yeah, for the time, 2007, I can see that, but it is kind of that thing where they're supposed to be shitty little high schoolers with like their foul mouth, they're the vulgar, they're like whatever. So I do feel like they get away with some of that from just being that, but I still was kind of shocked by some of what they were saying.
Yeah.
You know? And I think most of it comes down to misogyny in the movie.
Yes, that's definitely it.
More than homophobia. They never like outright say anything homophobic other than slurs. Like they never like do some really like, oh, you're gay
Yeah,
joke.
it's not like it's bad because you're this. It's just like the inserting of the word used as derogatory.
Yeah, totally. And like, of course, I think they probably wouldn't use them at least as liberally nowadays. I don't know. It doesn't cross as many lines as I maybe expected it to going back to 2007, other than when it comes to misogyny, which I feel like that is kind of like the point I was going to make about Michael Cera being kind of like the heart of this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, Evan honestly asks more questions than I expected about kind of the ethics of drunk hookups and like treating women like objects, and like very much, you know, in a clumsy, kind of nerdy, awkward way, is so focused on respecting women throughout the movie.
He raises the toast.
Yeah, he's like to respect of women. Like, he's like trying really hard to do that, and trying as much as he can to call out his best friend for not doing that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it gets it perfect by any means, but it kind of does show that the heart and the thought is there in a time where I feel like it would have been very easy to not have a character who did that, who levels out their more vulgar counterpart.
Yeah. And then like the climax in the end, like all these main characters, you know, Fogel, Evan, and Seth, they don't like necessarily succeed. Like, it ends in kind of this like sweet way where like Seth, Jonah Hill's character, doesn't get to hook up with Jules because he is too hammered. He thinks that's the ticket to do it. He comes, he's the star of the party for a moment because he shows up with the booze. People are chanting his name. He kind of gets the popularity moment he never has, but it doesn't, you know, seal the deal as he thinks it would. And Emma Stone has great dialogue there where she's like, oh, I don't even drink. This isn't over for you, but like, I'm just not going to do this right now because you're hammered. Like, you're going to make a bad decision. And Michael Cera's like hesitancy to, you know, even go to the room with Becca. And then the whole time they're like in the process of foreplay or whatever, he's almost like trying to like speed up the relationship. He's like, I like you so much. I've always liked you so much. And then he's like,
you're awesome.
Yeah.
You're so unique.
He's trying to like, he's very concerned with getting over the emotional hump. So he's almost like dumping all of his feelings at that moment in hopes of like convincing himself that it's all right. And then it, you know, eventually falls apart. She throws up. It doesn't happen. And that's like what she thanks him for in the end. So it does have like, it is sweet in that way where it's like the antithesis to like something like American Pie, where it's just like debaucherous or like bacchanal. Yeah. Like, it is like, here's these nerds that like actually get to, they like learn their lesson through their misconception of what it's like to be the king of the party.
And Fogel just wanted to have a good time.
And that's why he wins.
And that's why he wins. Like, you know, he actually does have sex. And he also befriends the two cops and has, like, the craziest night ever.
And, yeah, he just, like, he surrenders his time, too. Like, he's not so focused on getting the booze to the party.
He already has it.
He gets the booze, and then the second he realizes the cops are cool, he's like, how wild can this night get? Like, he gets tackled by the homeless guy and he takes credit for taking him down. He's having beers at the cop bar with them.
He asks if he could shoot their guns.
He's smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Like, why were you smoking a cigarette with the cops? He's like, 'cause I'm badass.
Yeah. The other, like, I love that Seth's character spends his entire night so focused on getting the alcohol that he puts his own life in danger, fills up a laundry detergent canister full of beer to bring to the party, all to realize that he could have just showed up to the party sober and had a better chance with Jules than showing up super drunk and being like the king of the party for a second.
Yeah. You know, that doesn't forgive like everything that's said in this movie, because I think the overall sexual underpinnings of even the scenes I have down for the best scenes, when I'm watching them, I'm like, wow, this is a great scene. And then it ends with like I'm going to shove my dick in her mouth or something. And you're like, Jesus, come on. Like, we had it. We had a great scene. But, you know, not that that's the charm of the show, but it's like, these are the sicko little nerdy high schoolers. And especially in Jonah Hill's case, like, everything's just tied up with that. Like, he goes on a rant, ends with how he's going to get laid.
Yeah, and a lot of those are just bolstered by the fact that they are so funny and so creative.
Yeah.
Like, Jonah Hill's lines throughout this movie, although they are vulgar and often, you know, step over a line we may perceive to be there nowadays, they're the funniest parts of the movie because he says vagine like multiple times and like finds new ways to talk about getting laid. Like
that veiny triumphant bastard.
Yeah, like he is a very creative vulgar speaker in this movie, and I feel like that's what saves the dialogue from just being pure misogynistic schlop.
Yeah.
You know? Last worst scene, and it's more of a line, is Bill Hader's character delivers during that they were talking about McLovin's name. They're like, oh, people's got such interesting names nowadays. He says, we arrested a man lady who was legally named Fuck.
Yeah.
And then says he was, I think, Vietnamese or something.
Yeah.
And while that line, it's very funny, it's just something that you wouldn't say nowadays, saying man lady.
Yeah, that line is still funny if you just would have said like trans man now.
Yeah, at the same time though, I think you could have that be said now, but because it's said by a cop who's supposed to be a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
In this movie, I mean, I'll just talk about that really quick. It's like the cops they're not painted as evil. They're painted as super irresponsible and having no authority.
Yeah, just stupid.
Yeah, just total moron guys who are not equipped to do their job and kind of don't care about doing their job.
Nope.
They kind of are like somewhere else in their journey, and these are just what they're doing at the time.
Yeah.
And they're willing to give into the same debauchery that any common criminal would.
Right.
And I think that does work. Maybe not as an anti-cop message that would be maybe like baked into this in a current Superbad movie, but like it still works because to me I'm like, it's not painting the cops as the good guys, it's painting them as fun guys.
Yeah, and
who
I think
are really, really bad at their job and really stupid and are not to be respected.
Yeah, there's just they get away with a little more like harmless ineptitude that like, you know, obviously we've seen examples of cops that are like just inept turned so violent that it's less like laughable.
Right.
It's like not laughable at all in a current state. But yeah, I mean, those characters are hilarious and they can only really exist in that time.
Yeah, they're running red lights and pointing their gun at anything that moves. And it's like, yeah, that's a bad, you know, it's a bad thing. But at the same time, in this movie, it does work to just show them as stupid as the high schoolers, if not more stupid at times. So like it works, but it wouldn't be made nowadays the same way.
Right. Some scenes that are really great that I want to make note of. We've already talked about the liquor store dream sequences. The one detail that we didn't mention is before he does the old lady back and forth, he does an original back and forth with just the cashier. He says, "How old are you?" And he says, "I'm 22." And he goes, "You certainly are." And then he goes, "That'll be $80." And he hands him an $80 bill.
He pulls it out of his sleeve and gives it to him and goes, "Will this work?" And he goes, "It certainly will, Seth."
Yeah, knows his name too. That's like the other detail.
And he goes, "Thank you," and like high fives him. It's awesome.
We already talked about the dick drawing sequence, but I love that whole scene. One we haven't shouted out yet is the conversation that takes place prior to Jonah Hill getting hit the first time, and while Fogel is in the liquor store buying liquor, Jonah Hill and Michael Cera are having the conversation about like their potential of getting laid tonight or whatever. And Michael Cera asks if he's brought a condom out, and Jonah Hill's like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, I did. I also brought some spermicidal lube."
A little bottle of spermicidal lube.
That whole back and forth where Jonah Hill's not like, he's just like pissed that he didn't do it.
Yeah,
you know, he's just like upset that he didn't think of it. And Michael Cera, despite doubting himself and kind of already being like, yeah, it's not going to happen tonight, he's just got to be safe.
Yeah, he's all about safety.
Yeah.
And I love that Jonah Hill, in his jealousy of not being confident enough to bring a condom out, he gets so frustrated by that he accuses Michael Cera of being a serial killer. Like, he's like, "What are you, a serial killer?" It's awesome. Like, it's so funny how insecure Jonah Hill seems to be in this movie.
Yeah, that scene's great because then it climaxes with Jonah Hill being so frustrated, and then he just gets backed into and like pops down, and then trying to extort the guy who's hit him out of money and, you know, liquor and everything. It's awesome.
And the little bow on that one too is that then McLovin, when he's getting laid at the party, pulls out a condom and a bottle of spermicidal lube, showing that he, like, the two confident characters are the ones you wouldn't expect to be.
Right.
That's what I think is awesome about it. And they're both being safe about it,
Yeah.
which is nice. The one scene I wanted to point out is Bill Hader, after they bust the party that McLovin, Seth, and Evan are at. Bill Hader has like a 10-second scene where he's just dancing in the living room with beers, and he's dancing to Pork and Beef by the Coop.
Yeah.
And it's just saying, like, don't trust the police. Like, and he's just like dancing to that. It is oh, what a scene. It's so funny.
I do want to point out, when I first watched this movie, you initially resonate with the high school version of yourself that wasn't too far in the past, but that now is so far gone that, like, when they first walk into the party they're going to steal alcohol from, like the older people's party, I'm like, yeah, I go to shit like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know those people.
Yep.
Now, where, like, I'm so far from knowing high schoolers that I'm like, I guess they wouldn't talk like that. But the second they go into that party, I'm like, that guy's angry and on coke. I know him.
Yeah.
I know him.
I did the exact same thing. I was like, oh, yeah, no, I've been to stuff like this.
Yeah.
And the high school party, I was like, I kind of remember that. But
Almost,
but
didn't quite nail it.
nobody there's angry and doing coke.
Yeah, what's up with that? And then inside of the adult party, the sequence where they make Michael Cera, who to them is Jimmy's brother.
Yeah.
They make him sing These Eyes. It's like, my brother came all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona, this party, and you're not going to sing for him?
Yeah, they're all doing, like, backup for him. They're all like, these eyes have cried.
The one dude's crying. And then when the fight breaks out, and there's the huge guy is laying on Michael Cera, they again refer to him. They go, come on, hold him back, Jimmy's brother. Like, don't learn his name. He's Jimmy's brother. The fight breaking out there and them escaping is really awesome.
Yeah.
Inside of that, the period dancing scene, maybe it hasn't aged the worst, but it has. Like, it's very weird, and it's like, there's nothing to it. Like, why does that happen?
I feel like it's just to get the guy who is throwing the party to be angry at Jonah Hill's character.
Right.
To me, the thing that throws that over the top is just the reaction to it.
Yeah.
It's like the moment that he finds out that it's period blood, he's like, I'm going to throw up.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
They're all taking pictures of it, and then the other girls there are like, need a tampon for your mangina? And it's
yeah, that scene definitely did age poorly. Like,
yeah.
It's like...
To me, that was by far the worst one, because I remember that being like such a critical scene, because it does kind of like turn the night into that. Now it's like chaos. They got to run out of that party and whatever.
And I remember kids in high school talking about that scene a lot. And like, I feel like it did kind of shift the way that people thought about like periods and period blood and like how embarrassing that would be.
Right.
And then as you get older, you realize like no one cares about that.
Yeah.
Like,
I was bleeding out of my dick this morning.
Right. I mean,
like a lot.
Right. I remember that. Yeah.
A lot. And not out the hole either.
Right.
Out the sides.
Yeah. Sometimes that happens.
It was like when you poke holes in a water balloon and squeeze it.
Yeah, as you get older, stuff like that just happens, and so you get used to yourself on a medical level.
Yeah.
That, like, people bleed out of wherever
all
the time.
All the time.
I might be leaking right now. I have no idea.
And it's fine.
Yeah, I can't really feel much below my belly button.
That's okay.
Yeah.
And women's menstrual cycles,
yeah,
rock on.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Don't get it on me, but I'm not going to throw up if a little gets on me. I'd say, hey.
I don't care. That doesn't matter
it happens.
at all.
It's cool.
Right.
It's not cool. Like, sucks. I'm glad.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to menstruate, I guess.
Well, yeah, definitely, but it doesn't suck for me. I don't care.
No, it doesn't suck for me, but I have empathy for the negative feelings that they may associate with it. Cramps and stuff.
You're looking for some sort of congratulations for this?
Not a congratulations. I'm just trying. I'm on the right side of the fence, right?
You're trying to steer the ship to safety? Is that the deal?
There's not a lot of wind on the sea today. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
I am kind of stuck in the middle.
Yeah, totally. If you are very young and you're watching us right now, period blood is not gross, and menstrual cycles are normal and regular, and so yeah.
Yes.
Don't
unless you're not regular, in which case that's fine too.
Totally. It can be, irregular
once a month,
flow.
it could be.
Sometimes it's once every 3 months.
Sometimes it's once a year.
Yeah.
Big one. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm saying it's fine.
I don't know. It's all
It's
fine.
fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Are we good? Did we make it?
Cops aren't funny anymore.
Yeah.
Period blood is fine. And overt millennial sexual vulgarity has kind of aged out, but in this Apatow Jonah Hill pseudo masterpiece, we walk a thin line, and it's okay.
Yes. Last thing that I will bring up in the scenes category, and that I think aged very well and was funny for me to watch as an adult that I did not pick up on as a kid, is the scene where, like I talked about earlier with the sleeping bags, Jonah Hill and Michael Cera are sharing their I love you moment and all that stuff. Then it cuts directly to the morning, and they wake up, and Jonah Hill gets up and is trying to rush out.
Yeah, it's a one-night stand.
It's a one-night stand, exactly. It's like this thing where he's like, I gotta go, I gotta get out of here. And he's like, no, what don't we, you want to hang out? And he's like, I don't know.
He's like, I gotta go to the mall.
Yeah, and then they go to the mall together.
Yeah.
It's very much something that I didn't realize the dynamic there that they're playing on, and the dynamic is a one-night stand between two people where the guy is embarrassed and the woman wants a little bit more companionship out of the thing.
Well, because they had gone too far intimately the night before. They had confessed too much of their love, and then it's like awkward in the morning. Like, oh, we probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, drunkenly they said, I love you.
Yes.
And then the next day, he's afraid of that emotional intimacy that he shared, the vulnerability, and he needs to get out of there. He's got fight or flight. You know?
Then when they agree to hang out further, Jonah Hill's fine with it, but he goes, all right, your mom's got great tits, and then runs up the stairs. Like, he's still got to get like a, fuck you, man. Like,
yeah. I absolutely loved that scene with the context of being an adult and understanding.
Yeah. I think we've touched on a lot of the themes that would be a lot different today, but to nail it down to just one thing, I think it would just be sexual language overall.
Mm-hmm.
And like coming out of a man's mouth talking about women just has a different shape to it nowadays. I think you can still get away with like foul-mouthed teenagers trying to get laid.
Yeah.
That's something that's always going to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a way to do that. That has a much different shape now than, like I said, a lot of these high moments that get kind of chopped at the end with Jonah Hill saying something that is just unbelievable. That wouldn't be said today.
Yeah, and I basically, for this section, not to get all Jerry Seinfeld press tour on you, but I don't think they could make it.
No.
I just don't think they would make a movie like this nowadays. Like, with the same, there's too much. Like, there's too much about the time that, I know I haven't said this about all of the other movies. I've been like, oh, if you, like, reeled this in and reeled this in. I just think, like, that dynamic doesn't exist the same way anymore.
Yeah.
And what they did in this movie, they kind of had to do. And I don't think it works or is as much of a comedy classic as it is without crossing some of those lines. And so I'm not saying that they crossing those lines was for the better.
Right.
I'm just saying that I don't think they could make a movie this good in this style right now, at least. Maybe 10 years from now, things will change and there'll be, you know, a new way to do that. You can't predict how comedy is going to change in 10 years, but for me, I don't think that they could really make Superbad now.
They're always going to make the coming-of-age high school movie, but yeah, I agree with you. It can't. We've kind of passed this moment.
Yeah.
Of just the party, get the girl, cherchez la femme, if you will, and acquiring underage booze. Like, it just, it's buried.
No more French, please.
I wasn't French, but it was hot. You got to admit. You have to admit that was hot.
Merci beaucoup.
Baguette. Sorry, I did more French.
Yeah.
I'm having a real hard time with recasting these past couple ones. At first, I thought it was really fun, and I was excited by it. And now we've watched such classics that I'm just like, well, it can't be changed. So I have a couple ideas. First one's stupid, and I know it. It's Daniel Radcliffe instead of Michael Cera. Big whoop. Not a great idea. Fuck off.
Is he doing it British or not?
Yeah, sure. He's doing it as Harry Potter. He is just Harry Potter, and instead he just makes liquor appear or something. Fuck it. I know that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
I wrote it down like 8 minutes
one.
into the movie.
Yeah.
Second one. I don't love the girl who plays Becca's performance.
I do.
Great. I wrote maybe she could be Megan Fox. I don't know.
That's you.
Last one. Last one. And this is just another.
Whatever.
Take from it what you will, because this character that I'm recasting has one scene.
Okay.
Maybe Evan's mom is Jessica Simpson. She's kind of the early 2000s hot blonde lady.
Yeah, she was. Yeah.
And, if she has the scene where she bends over into the car and Jonah Hill gets to talk about her honkers, maybe that's all right. Her boobies. Sorry. Fuck, this was hard, and I told you I wasn't happy with what I chose, but that's what I chose.
Okay. For me, I feel like a female reboot is the move. That's
All
just
of it.
kind of how. Well, it's female driven. It's not
Yeah.
every single character's a woman, but close. I'm gonna go with. I think that Rachel Sennott could be Seth, and then maybe Ayo Adibri could be Evan, and then Ruby Cruz could be McLovin, and Marshawn Lynch could be the teacher.
I like that. And then hear me out on this.
Yeah.
Jacob Elordi is Jules.
No.
What?
No, it's going to be some guy, I don't know his name, but he's like a little bit flamboyant and he's like the football player. Maybe Punky Johnson can be like the lesbian aunt of Evan's character, Ayo Adibri, and then it can be I honestly could work some Fight Club elements into it. So they start like a fight club to defend the women, to defend themselves against like some unnamed killer, but it's really to like hook up with the other girls that are in the fight club.
Are you just talking about bottoms?
I don't know. I was just kind of dreaming up like my own scenarios.
Yeah.
So, who knows?
This whole movie is like 70s funk scene. The movie's called Superbad. You know what I mean?
No, it's called Superbad.
Well, right, but that's like a thing like a hip funk guy in the late 70s would say, "Hey, Riley, those pants are super bad."
Pulled up with some super bad bitches and they make loving on my guy.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, that's like
all
some 70s shit, right?
Cool.
Yeah.
The whole track is power late 70s funk, and then they play a crazy Bossa song during the dick drawing flashback.
Yeah, Lyle Workman did most of the soundtrack.
Yeah. And then the opening song is the Barkays, and then you have a Curtis Mayfield song at the end. I love the song when McLovin starts to dance once they finally make it to Jules' party. I'm the boogeyman, turn me on. I'm the boogeyman.
Yeah.
I'm the boogeyman. Do what you want. Yeah, it's funny that it's a movie written by kids in high school in the 90s that is transcribed into the early 2000s that takes 7 years to finish with a 70s funk soundtrack.
Yeah, and they often, I think it's funny, I don't necessarily like this in other movies, but it kind of works in this one, where the party is playing, some like old funk song or something, and then the next scene it shows and they're playing like a Biggie song.
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't make sense at the party, like in my opinion.
Right.
But it works for the scenes that they use it for.
Yeah.
So it is kind of almost a serviceable soundtrack, like where we just did Napoleon Dynamite and Hot Rod.
Mm-hmm.
Those feel like the soundtrack makes the tone
Clicks.
of the movie.
Yeah.
I think this soundtrack just kind of like serves the movie, but doesn't like define it in any way.
Yeah, and I almost think it's like a cheeky nod to the films that they're inspired by. It's almost trying to be reminiscent of those, Dazed and Confused wasn't made in the 70s, but that's where it's set. American Graffiti was made in the 80s. Fast Times at Ridgemont High is like that dated 80s, funky era. And so when you get that music in it, it almost takes you to those places as the viewer where you're like, it just makes it more believable because you've seen it before.
Yeah.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off, another one,
Mm-hmm. Pretty in Pink.
There you go. 16 Crandalls. Those are crayons on fire. Dip them in a lighter fluid.
Yeah. Oh.
Crandalls.
Crandalls. I like that.
Thank you.
I would 100% recommend it to somebody who has not seen it, with a few warnings that I wouldn't give for other ones. If you are sensitive to misogyny, homophobia, some ableism, some light racism,
Some really good drawings of dicks.
right, vulgarity in general.
Yeah.
And then I would also say just hints at situations of, sexual misconduct and maybe like the, some toiling with the ethics of drunk hookups and high schoolers exploring sexuality. I would say that if you, are really, really sensitive to any of those topics, I would say maybe avoid this one. But if you are curious about it and those things maybe don't turn you away from a movie 100%, then I would say it's one of the best comedies.
Yeah.
You know?
I would say like probably not to the general public, but to people that I know to be fans of those older movies that I've suggested, or even fans of the newer ones like Project X. Like if you're a fan of this high school coming of age party movie, gotta champion the night right before you go to college, like this fits right in there, and I think actually is probably in the like top 3 of those.
Yeah, or if you're a fan of our content and specifically the stuff that he says more than the stuff that I say, you will love this movie. You will absolutely love it.
I would just say I'd be a little cautious to who I recommend it to, and I would make sure to really feel them out before I said go watch it. Because if I just met someone and let's say they had a coexist bumper sticker or something and they were like, by the way, I haven't seen Superbad, should I see it? They're kind of driving by me at a slow pace.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
That's kind of my reaction. Is like,
Totally.
I don't know because I don't know you that well. And if I get to know you that well and based on all those other things I said, I'd say yes. Because it is a great movie. I mean, it's like it's quintessential Apatow. There's so many Hader and Rogen moments in it that are just amazing. And in the moment we're living in of Emma Stone's like real coming to prowess, like A-list Hollywood, that was one of the things I was most interested in going back and rewatching this, was just like, wow, she is like such a mega star in her second Yorgos movie of the year, fresh off of Poor Things. She's produced I Saw the TV Glow. She has her own production company. She is like ascended to totally another level. To see her in her film debut here, that was like what I was so eager to come running to.
And she was fantastic in this movie, like flawless
Yeah.
performance from Emma Stone.
The home ec scenes are hilarious. All her comedy is delivered in such a good way, and then she's like very mature and put together and like thoughtful in other moments that are just great.
Yeah, it's very believable as a character, more than maybe any other character in the movie, that she has older brothers and her sense of humor is kind of like, I don't know, it's like very weird because it's like a nuanced thing that you'll see in acting, but I believe that Emma Stone has older brothers in this character, and that's why she's a little like lighter on Seth's kind of brand of vulgar comedy. She's like okay with that, but still has a line as just like a put together mature woman about to go to college. You know, like there's a very thing that actually she's a great actress by like making that all feel believable. For anybody who doesn't,
I just saw it.
For people who don't know how we film these videos, we have a monitor over here with both of our docs open, and so I saw his just now,
You're
and
a loser, man. You're a loser.
We
You're
wrote
cheap.
ours separately, and I wrote 4 stars, more like super good.
You're a cheap, lazy loser, and I wrote 3 stars, not quite super good. You're a cheap clown. That's what you are.
Leave the tricks to me.
You are a cheap, lazy
You
clown.
did a trick, and the tricks are mine.
Yeah. But I did a more critical trick, so who's better?
Okay.
4 stars, awesome movie. That's basically what you did.
See, if you like that sort of thing, you're going to love this movie. You just hate yourself, don't you?
No, I mean,
you watched this and were like, Jonah Hill, stop it with all of that vulgar stuff.
No, I am on a historically mundane streak on Letterboxd. I've given, I think the last 20 movies I've watched 3 or 3.5 stars. Nothing can bust out of it for me.
Yeah. Do you know what mundane means?
Mundane.
Mundane means like boring.
Yeah, it's boring to follow my Letterboxd right now because every
gotcha.
fucking movie I watch.
I thought you just meant you were being too critical, because this feels like way too critical for Superbad.
I think overall I've gone too critical on like both ends. You know, and I've just found myself where every movie, I gave Challengers 3 stars. I gave Dune 2 3.5. Like, that's not fun for anyone that follows me.
So you think Dune 2 is better than Superbad?
Yeah. What the fuck? Whoa, yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen Dune 2. So.
Oh, yeah, it's a way better movie.
Are
you high on rocks of some kind?
Here's what I'll say.
Crystal crack.
I'm trying to.
Kinds?
Yeah, I'm high on a lot of rocks, but I'm trying to get more into movies. This has definitely made me do that.
Yeah.
I will say I watched the first 20 minutes of Asteroid City last night.
Bad movie.
That was one of the worst things I've ever watched. Like, I could not believe how bad it was.
Well, yeah, they make a lot of bad movies.
Me and Hunter turned it off. I hate Wes Anderson.
There's 2 types of people.
Right, but I mean, like, I hate the camera movement. I hate how it looks.
Yeah.
I hate how there's no stakes to it. It's like this choppy ass fucking dialogue that I can't stand. But regardless, I'm just saying, it feels like you're not letting yourself have fun by giving this 3 stars. Name 10 comedies that are better than Superbad. It's hard.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to do it right now in front of you, but I'll text them to you later. But like,
Okay.
I could say the same thing kind of about Asteroid City as like a movie viewer. It's like, yeah, there's no stakes. It is like weird and awkward, but visually, you got to like let yourself enjoy the fucking symmetry, the like excitement that all those shots like bring you.
They don't. That's the problem.
Well, right.
That's
And you know,
that's a taste thing, and I get that.
And
But
here we
I'm
are.
just saying, I think if you screened Superbad and then Asteroid City, like right after each other,
Yeah.
more of the crowd would enjoy Superbad than Asteroid City, just to a regular person.
I don't know. I don't think so. I do not agree. It'd be an interesting double feature.
All right, let's do it. Let's
Yeah.
do a drive-in.
Yeah,
where we
all
do
the
that.
gay 17-year-olds are going to stand up and clap for Superbird. Superbird. No, they're going to like Asteroid City.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
17-year-olds would hate that movie because they don't remember a time where that used to be entertainment.
But it's fun.
It's like a dumbass fucking play.
I'm not defending Wes Anderson. You think how you want. I can still have fun in life, and a lot of it involves watching terrorists and stuff.
What?
I like harder core stuff now, and that's fine.
You like war movies instead?
Movies, yeah.
All right, well, listen. Sorry about that. We got a little sidetracked. But Superbad, how did it age? I thought it aged pretty well. Still a great movie. But let us know down in the comments what you thought about it. Let us know what movie we should do next. And if you want to know what movie we're doing next, join our Patreon. We post a week ahead of these videos what movie we're going to be talking about so that you can rewatch it and watch these with more context. It also helps support the channel a lot, so thank you so much to everybody who's in our Patreon. We also post them for our YouTube members on our main channel, HIVEMIND. So if you become a member over there, $5 a month, you'll also get to see what movie we are going to be talking about the following Sunday on HIVEMIND Unlimited.
Join the movie club.
This has been HIVEMIND Unlimited. We watched Superbad, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching us.